What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is going to be another 2020 album review. And I am finally here to do it. I know it's pretty much overdue, the actual time of me reviewing this album. But since that I have received my CD copy of this album that I'm going to be talking about, I am the more the merrier pleased to finally do this review. Sorry that it is pretty much late, but I am here to talk about The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny by Mr. Bungle. Now, this is their first album in 21 years. 21 years after their previous album of California, which is another one of those Bungle albums that loads of people talk about as highly praised for its significance into a very surf rock poppy kind of sound, but still contains the crazy over-the-top madness of their experimentalisms, as well as with Disco Volante being their most challenging and their fantastic classic self-titled debut album. However, with The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny, this is more or less a very different turn. If you're going to be expecting something completely experimental and very versatility-packed in a different genre-packed album, then this is not the record. The Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny is pretty much more or less, as we now know, a thrash metal album. So it has been some time when I have listened back to some thrash metal. I do love some thrash myself, not only from the big four, but I do like other bands that are on the underrated side of the genre. But for me, with Mr. Bungle, I feel when I listen to this album, this is to me a huge refreshing sound. This was a re-recording of their first ever demo that was recorded and made in 1986. So I think to move away from the sounds that they've done previously on the three albums, the classic trilogy, this is a hugely different, but I think worth of a visiting sound to hear a piece of music in mainly a few genres than an album with so many genres. The only original members left are Mike Patton, Trace Bruance, and Trevor Dunn, but also to include in this new lineup, we've got Anthrax's Scott Ian and ex-Slayer drummer Mr. Dave Lombardo. There's so many great stuff to talk about on this particular album. It's a really good idea, and to hear the other phenomenal talents of Lombardo and Ian, this is such a great combination. And while I have listened to the first single, Raping Your Mind, which I have actually done a listening and reacting to, I was really anticipated. And when this album was unleashed to the world, I was really happy with this. This is easily a very fresh and new, but a passionate, consistent sound of the energized musicianship and the tone of the band. This to me sounds like a different band all the way through from the beginning to the finishing end on this release. The entire album is pretty much mostly the consistent material that had been done from the first demo, but we get to hear two covers, one of them being the Stormtroopers of Death cover of Hypocrites, Alba Espanol al Mure, the Corrosion of Conformity cover of Lost for Words. But I think this album, production-wise and the tone, this is absolutely amazing. I think the best thing about this particular album is the each separate roles of the entire band. Trace Bruance's guitar work is some of his best. Very, very crunchy, distorted guitars, and some of the riffs that he had nailed on point with this kind of style. Significant role for Bungle for pretty much since the beginning, but to play something like this is excellent. You can't forget Scott Ian's guitar work, his dramatic, flashy, and yet over-the-top, frenetic guitar playing style with the crazy fast alternate picking to the solos. They were crisp and stunning. And also Trevor's bass work. The bass work from him, very, very good as well. Brilliant blend with the distorting guitars erupting the whole place. You cannot forget the monstrous, the attacking, the brutal, destructive sound of Dave Lombardo's drumming. He can still put in a lot of these chops that he had been doing for years. A lot of the same beats, but with his fills, they were completely strong, precise, brilliant form of these different sounds on his beats. Lombardo has always been one of my favorite drummers of all time in metal, and he still shows that. He shines consistently on the record. Mike Patton's vocals, his vocals on this record, very great. I love the sound of him shrieking from his high range to the crazy maniac sounding grunty vocals, and the passion with his vocal styles were perfect. No wonder Mike Patton's one of my favorite vocalists of all time, because he can pretty much do anything. I mean, he's been doing many, many, many other projects, from solo work to orchestration performances to production, and obviously we know him in Faith No More, but for him being in Mr. Bungle, to think that Mr. Bungle was his first ever band to have been recording through major labels like mainly Warner Brothers Records, it is insane that he still definitely delivers. The vocals were fantastic. There were loads of these songs on the album that starts things dramatically or instantly fast and insane sounding. The opening track, Grizzly Adams, I think was a brilliant opener. Just the only song on here to hear the low down-tuned guitar notes before hearing the band going in towards the end of the song to listen to that striking distortion, the tone to the drums as well. And we hear later songs on this record, especially with Bungle Grind, probably my favourite on this album because of its over-the-top delivery, to other songs like Anarchy Up Your Anus with its very, very instant, fast-paced time signatures, and also the track of Erasist, very crossover thrash-packed like the other ones, but it's catchy to my mind, one of the memorable numbers on the record. There were other riffs that were packed in grooviness and something very, very intriguing and so rhythmic. Glutton for Punishment, some menacing vibes, and the stellar performances to that track. The two covers I do like, but if I have to pick the strongest cover out of the two, it will have to be Lost for Words, because that is more of the favourite, and one of my favourite songs in general on the record, as well as with Raping Your Mind, as I have already expressed my feelings about that track. The only songs that I think were one of the weakest, if not maybe my weakest, would have to be Mathematics. Don't get me wrong, on this song, there were riffs that were engaging. There's so many of these changes that, to me, don't grow on me or just get me hooked as instantly, and it goes on for a bit too long. It's 9 almost minutes, but it is a decent number. I wish that there would have been something perfect as the other ones that I really liked. The other songs that I thought were pretty good, Spreading the Thighs of Death is, to me, a very, very good number, but again, not one of my favourites. It still delivers things in terms of just the brutality of the speed to the frenetic soloing and Patton's vocals. Some of these musicianships on almost every track were complete and tight, and they never fail to impress me. Even if it's through a lineup change, they have always never been one of those bands to continue a genre on another album, because they like to make records in many different ways, and to completely strip back these highly advanced, complex, and very rhythmical, frantic sounds of the previous three, this is definitely, to me, a saving grace, and pretty much a great addition into the repertoire in Bungle's history. The production, I do love this. The production is very great. The drums to the guitars, as I said, that they were fantastic, but it's like that it's just recorded live in the studio, but the mixing of it is just as great. Bungle have never released an album with poor production, and they are one of the best bands for that, because each of these separate productions in their repertoire, through these major big releases, they were fat, they were big, and full of richness. And I gotta say, for this particular thrash-packed album with various grooves, faster, chaotic madness, the over-the-top vocals and chanting background vocals, it is worth the treat. I am interested to know what you think of this album in the comments down below, and like I said, I apologize that it's taken me a long amount of days for a bit to review this album, but I am pleased to finally talk about it. This is a very, very good release from Mr. Bungle, and I think it's going to get better the more I listen to this album, and you know, you can't go wrong with a band to go in another style. I'm going to give this album a 9 out of 10. I know that is pretty high, but like I said, this will be a grower, and this could possibly be a potential addition to the top 10 albums of 2020. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.